In this video, I'm going to stray away from my usual subject, which is the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, talk about a subject that has really predominated the spectrum of the United States and around the world, COVID-19. Now, I'm going to speak about a certain subject that caught my eye today, which was released by CNN, and how the subject came to be. I was actually talking to a friend of mine through Twitter, and I posted this article that I read on Twitter today, which really got me to thinking that there could be a dangerous precedent if it comes to fruition, in which I will speculate, which is something I don't like to do. But in this regard, it is constructive to speculate about the worst aspects of what I will be talking about. Now, yesterday, the Department of Defense released the first images of COVID-19 record cards and their kits earlier in the day. According to Dr. Kelly Moore, the Associate Director of the Immunization Action Coalition, vaccination cards will be used as the simplest way to keep track of COVID-19 shots. Now, the Department of Defense back in May 15 of 2020 announced the start of Operation Warp Speed, which is to facilitate and accelerate the development, manufacture, distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. The components of said operation include the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, Food and Drug Administration, the National Institutes of Health, and the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or in short, BARDA, the Department of Defense, private firms involved with the Department of Defense, private firms involved with the Pentagon, and other federal agencies, including Department of Agriculture, the Department of Energy, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. So this is a large, multifaceted operation funded to the tunes of billions of dollars. The vaccine developers who are receiving the majority of funding are basically getting large-scale funding, which is to the likes of, I think it's about to the tunes of $125 billion. It could be more. But I'll relate to you. Johnson & Johnson, which is $1 billion, and then it was awarded an additional $456 million in March of 2020. AstraZeneca, the University of Oxford, and Vaccitech, to the tune of $1.2 billion, May 21st, 2020. The vaccine candidate is AZD 1222. Moderna, which is a American biotechnology company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to the tune of $1.53 billion. The vaccine candidate is mRNA-1273. The government had previously given Moderna two other previous grants to the tune of $483 million, $472 million, and of course an additional $2.48 billion in 2020. Novavax, which is a vaccine development company in Gatesburg, Maryland, $1.6 billion on July 1st, 2020. The vaccine candidate is NVX-CoV2373. Merck, which some of you may have heard, which is a multinational pharmaceutical company based in the United States and Canada. $1.6 billion. on, 38 million on April 15, 2020. The vaccine candidate is V590. And GlaxoSmithKline, which is a multinational pharmaceutical company based in Brentford, England. It is the sixth largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And Sanofi, a French multinational pharmaceutical company headquartered in Paris. They got the amount of $2.1 billion on July 31st, 2020, and they don't have a name for their vaccine candidate as of yet. And that is, I didn't even mention Vaxart or Invonio and the dozens and dozens of other pharmaceutical companies and vaccination companies and viral companies that are involved with Operation Warp Speed, which is just huge. It is a huge operation. I didn't want to make this video about the companies involved, but you get the grift. This is a tremendous operation that's involving many agencies from the federal and state global levels. According to Monsif Al-Slawi, who is the chief advisor to Operation Warp Speed, that by February of 2021, 100 million Americans could be vaccinated against coronavirus. Its name, COVID SARS-2. To give a general rundown on how vaccines work, I'm going to explain to the best of my ability, which is limited. So bear with me. Vaccine production, which many people are not aware of because the legacy media won't tell you this. They'll just give you a general rundown of how vaccines are generally safe, and they don't tell you that it takes a couple of years for them to finalize. But I'm going to give you a general rundown of how they are constructed. And they come in several stages. First is the antigen itself is generated. So doctors working on vaccines have to produce an antigen. A virus may need to be inactivated first, possibly with no further purification required. And then the adjunct or the adjuvant enhances the immune responses of that antigen. Stabilizers, which increase the storage life, and preservatives allow the use of multi-dose vials. And then finally, what is called fill and finish, which is production, distribution, to put the completed tested vaccine into a viral capsule itself and mass produced. Now, I didn't mention that we have trial vaccines, which are basically used on animals in scientific labs. I do have to admit that most of the information I just relayed to you came from the Journal of American Pharmacists Association. That didn't come from my own lips and mind. I basically had to look at this information based upon that site itself. Vaccines usually take on average about 10 years to finalize and fully complete. Even though coronavirus vaccines have been in the works for years, however, this specific coronavirus, COVID-19 SARS-2, which is a novel virus, meaning that it is a new mutation of the coronavirus family. And so I'm a little bit hesitant at the vaccine itself. Now, mind you, this is not about how the vaccine is going to work or not work in your favor. This is also not a conspiracy against the vaccine itself. There are a load of conspiracies abounded and viral media. Facebook, Twitter, Facebook being a complete cesspool, YouTube, same thing. So much disinformation, misinformation about how Bill Gates is poisoning the world. He's trying to depopulate the world. He's trying to kill off the world. Look, I just named a dozen companies involved, and there are dozens and dozens of private and public companies that are involved with the production of vaccines that are going to come out in the future. And it's not in their interest. This is not, of course, I just want to make this clear. This is not a defense of Big Pharma. I have just a list of complaints just on Johnson & Johnson alone, which, of course, has a questionable history regarding, of course, the baby powder incident. In fact, I am not going to get into that. Just Google baby powder incident, Johnson & Johnson. You're going to get a quite a story there. Pfizer, all these big companies that profit in the billions with unfinished products. And there is a hundred, even thousands of pharmaceutical medicines that are unfinished that have multiple side effects. This is not a defense of Big Pharma. However, it is not in their interest to put out a product that is going to poison the public, in which they're trying to make a profit from. This is just basic business economics, something that I dabbled in 25, 30 years ago when I was very young. I was 22, working for a chop shop, so to speak. It was 3 months. I was not a stockbroker. I left. It was just a questionable business, and I was friends of mine tried to get me into it, and I left. But what I'm trying to tell you is that even though they're going to produce a vaccine, it's going to come in two stages. You have to take the vaccine twice, and this will just tell you that it's an unfinished product. But what they're trying to do is trying to first stave off the rising rates of COVID, which, again, this is not a second stage. This is still the continuous of the initial outbreak. It never ended. And that is basically because we have far too many people in this country who don't even believe it exists. And then we have the extreme on the other side. Far too many people who are going to the vast extremes. I have taken Uber cabs where they have outlined the cars in the back. Their entire back is covered in plastic. A little bit too extreme for me. I think a mask, fine enough. All right? A mask works. It prevents you from spreading your droplets, which is how COVID-19 SARS is spread through droplets that we know of. And I think that would be enough. You wash your hands here and there, not too much, because you basically will destroy the bacteria that you do need in your body, which are basically eating away at virus models, bacteria, dangerous bacteria. So it's good to have some level of bacteria in your body. It's good. It's not bad. I'm not saying to be a dirt bomb or anything like that, to be dirty, but you basically know where I'm coming from, okay? But yeah, I mean, two extremes. And so these extremes are basically listening to the, and this is coming from an emotional reaction to how this pandemic is. And this is not even a lethal virus. I mean, we had an outbreak not too long ago, 9 years ago, which was a lot more dangerous and deadlier than what we are witnessing today. And that basically came from. I'm trying to think of the. Oh, I'm sorry. The swine flu. I couldn't think about it. But yeah, swine flu, which is a lot deadlier. H1N1, which wasn't as infectious as COVID-19, but it was a lot more deadlier than COVID-19. Now, this is not to say that because it's less deadlier, it's less dangerous. No, because it's infectious, it is dangerous in a different regard in that H1N1 wasn't a novel virus. COVID-19 is. So we still don't know about the dangerous properties or how it's infecting human bodies. And this is the reason why there was a change in rules and regulations in the beginning months. A lot of people were blaming Dr. Fauci, who's been a virologist for the past 35, 40 years, different administrations. The guy has been tried and true. Not to say that everything that he says on the political status of COVID-19 is to be taken seriously. I say take with a grain of salt, but I'm going to rely on the guy's expertise regarding virology. I'm not going to listen to the likes of Rashid Buttar or Judy Mikovits. They're not even virologists. And this is where this level of disinformation comes from on that spectrum. Okay? What the CDC or the World Health Organization is hiding from us, which I am absolutely certain they are, in which they don't want to cause a pandemic, a real worry in the public, which happened in March here in New York. First thing that ran out was toilet paper. Why? And then it was Clorox bleach and stuff, which I can understand why. But canned food, meats, later on meats became scarce. But just imagine if, cholera, smallpox, Ebola broke out. We would see anarchy in the streets. So we basically saw outbreaks of civil disobedience with this virus, but not to lose the initial message of what I wanted to talk about in regards to what I read in the CNN article, which I'm going to link below the video itself. And that is the COVID-19 record cards that they want you to fill out when you get the vaccine. And why am I bringing this up? When I spoke to my friend MG about his experience with COVID-19, I went, he contacted it 2 weeks ago, and he had a mild strain, which was good, him and his wife. They had mild symptoms, headaches, coughing, lack of sleep, interrupted sleep, sweats, no nausea. He basically got over it. And what we spoke about was something that really caught my interest. And I'm going to quote you his response. In fact, what I want you to learn was that he got a call from the New York Department of State, New York, contact tracing department, in which they asked him very invasive questions to me. And he told them, quote, I finally told him, yes, I tested positive. No, I'm not sure how I contracted it. And I've informed everyone I thought I was in contact with over the 2 weeks before my test. That's all I'm willing to say. And they dropped it, end quote. Now, I found this to be quite peculiar because when I read the article and he told me that, it finally hit me saying, well, this could lead to very nefarious circumstances in the future if it comes true at all. But something that a lot of people aren't talking about, legacy media isn't talking about. In fact, what they're talking about is how people are reacting emotionally to pandemic, how the pandemic is spreading all throughout the country, which it is. Whether those records are true or not, I can't tell you specifically, legitimately, factually. I think that is all irrelevant to this point. And I think this point should be front and center. Now, of course, vested interests that want to use this for something in the future wouldn't want you to talk about. Now, like I said, this could lead to a very dangerous precedent. Under the New York State contact tracing guidelines, you have to answer, according to this card, you have to answer a couple of questions regarding how you got it, who you came in contact with, who those people are, where you contacted it, invasive health questions. Now, of course, another friend of mine, who I'll just say who is NJ, who's a healthcare practitioner, she brought up something that didn't hit me, but it was about the invasive nature, which I showed in the article. She goes, well, that is seemingly almost invasive nature of the HIPAA laws. Now, what are the HIPAA laws? It is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and it was established in 1996. Now, I'm going to link this in the bottom of the video because I think it's very important for people to know about HIPAA laws. I don't know anything about HIPAA laws until I had a general rundown of it, and I'm going to give you a general rundown. Now, there's a very important quote in the HIPAA laws. There's a multitude of laws about healthcare, sharing healthcare information, you're providing information, your personal data information regarding your interaction with your healthcare physician. Quote, the privacy rule standards address the use and disclosure of individuals' health information called protected health information by organizations subject to the privacy rule called covered entities, as well as standards for individuals' privacy rights to understand and control how their health information is used, end quote. That's important because if we're giving our information, our protected information under the HIPAA Act of 1996 to this state mandate, which is shared in a database and probably used by the federal government itself, who knows what that information is being stored? I was told 15 years ago that the NSA wasn't keeping our metadata, our emails, our phone calls, our text messages, when that was the opposite. In fact, they were storing it at a database called the Utah Data Center in Pine Bluff, Utah, which is stored there forever. Have you heard the quote, if you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to worry about? That was from a nationalist socialist, the Nazi regime. I'm not making this country out to be the Nazi regime. I think it could be a lot worse than this. We're led by a multitude of nefarious federal agencies that don't have our best interests at heart. Now, what I'm telling you is that they want to know as much privacy information as possible. What I'm getting at is that for someone like maybe you, or maybe me, or someone who's watching this video later on down the future, who don't get that vaccine, who doesn't get that card, that private entities, private corporations, private businesses, even public, I think it will start at private first, that won't allow people in their stores if you don't have that card. Now, years ago, the conspiracy was that they were going to shoot you with a small capsule, and that's how you're going to get your funding in the new banking system. This was the big New World Order, Illuminati, crazy conspiracy theories. You're going to be ejected. They don't need to do that. They already have your information. They already know where you're going. It's called your cell phone. But what they don't have is your private information regarding your healthcare provider. It's protected just so, in fact, that private entities would use that information to subjugate you as an individual in not getting a job or not getting maybe a bank loan or something like that to that effect. Something that would prevent you from getting that in which you wouldn't disclose at first. It's not the federal government's right to know about your private healthcare experience. How would they know you have COVID-19 anyway, or you didn't have it, if you didn't tell them? But here, it's almost as if this is the beginning stages of you having to tell them in order to enjoy your civil liberties. Now, of course, you'll have people on the defense saying, well, I want to know who's infected. I want to know who I'm coming into contact with because I may not want to trust that person. If he doesn't have his card, I may want to inform the authorities or the proper institutions about that person not having his card. You see where I'm getting at? That's not a crazy conspiracy theory. That's similarly what's happening right now with contact tracing. I mean, my own governor here in New York, Governor Cuomo, actually wanted people to call in to the state government, to the state officials about if your neighbor actually has COVID-19. That wasn't a joke. I'm laughing at the banality of what could be the future, what this may lead to. It may not. This may not be nothing at all. But I'm thinking of the worst because I'm a pessimist. This is how I think. But that's my anomaly. You don't have to be that way. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to say here, okay? This is really muddy waters we're walking into. And this is just the start. And how they will do this is that they'll try to normalize this, saying we need to know so we can protect you. The federal government does not care about you. They never have. They never will. You're going to get extremists on both sides of the spectrum in the future regarding this. The defenders of this will say that it's for their best interest, not thinking about the abuses of the civil liberties they're willing to give up, just like they did with 9/11. Very few civil liberties were abused, but it was incremental changes. It wasn't outright abuses because you won't notice it. That's how it works. They don't just take away your rights. They institute different laws and regulations. And that in time, it takes a while to notice that, hey, I remember back in my day, I didn't have to take off my shoes to show there was a bomb in them. Now you're going through invasive body scanners where they're showing your skeletal x-rays. In some airports, it was showing your body, your naked body. Not the definition of it, but some TSA workers were making fun of people's shapes and whatnot. We're taking pictures of women. That's actually true. You could look that up. You get what I'm trying to say here? Not to sound like a broken record. It is imperative that you, the people watching this video, the very few people, take great care in understanding your rights and who is trying to invade on them. It's not a conspiracy theory to think about the worst case scenarios, but you have to be careful at how you define them and how you spread the message. Because you don't want to end up like people who are, basically saying that they're trying to depopulate the world and kill you off right away. I wish I lived in a simplistic world like that. It doesn't happen that way. They're thinking 30, 40 years down the road. Meanwhile, we're thinking of right now. And that's the problem, because we have to start thinking like them to understand the mindset of the very people who are basically the enemy of human life and existence and your welfare.